Government and the Coalition will sit down this afternoon. Greg Combet will have a role in the negotiations. He's the Assistant Minister for Climate Change and he joins us in our Parliament House studio. Greg Combet, welcome.
G'day, friend.
Minister, the opposition's going to be pushing for 6 major amendments covering agriculture, coal, electricity generators, food processors, trade-exposed industries. You've had a quick look at their amendments. Are they acceptable on the face of it?
Well, we haven't actually seen any amendments at this point in time. We've seen the press release, of course, that's been issued with those areas identified, but in terms of any specific amendments, we haven't seen them, so we'll be looking forward to citing them. But, of course, the proposals are welcome.
And from the press release and what you've seen, there's some things that are clear. For instance, they want agriculture out. What do you think of that?
Well, I wouldn't go into speculating about what we think about each item at the moment. We'd like to see the specific amendments so that we can properly understand how they all operate. I was learning a couple of more things, for example, just from listening to Mr McFarlane a moment ago. So I think what our approach will be is, of course, to welcome the fact that these proposals have come forward. We're looking forward to seeing the amendments, working through the detail of them, discussing them with Mr McFarlane and his colleagues. We'll be doing our costing of them, of course. The questions you're asking, Mr McFarlane, are quite pertinent on that front, and we'll have a look at the impact of these things on the CPRS overall. But we will nonetheless be reintroducing the Carbon Pollution Reduction Scheme legislation into the House of Representatives this Thursday, and will allow, of course, sufficient time for that to be debated next week in the House of Reps, and then take it through to the Senate once it's been voted on in the House of Reps in the week of the 16th of November.
I'm sure you've done the same quick sums that I tried to do, working off the back of that press release and some briefings that I've had. Do you accept the Coalition's claim, Ian Macfarlane's claim, that the amendments are revenue neutral?
Well, we're just not in a position to make many observations about that. It seems to be a pretty big stretch, but we will have a very close look at it. A lot depends upon how the amendments themselves are constructed and how they would work with the scheme. I mean, it is a fairly detailed piece of legislation, so the approach we're taking is to have a good look at all of these proposals in detail and the specific amendments, and do our costings of them, as you would expect, to inform our position in negotiations.
And what about environmentally responsible? Because on the face of it, this gives a lot more free permits away to industry, to trade-exposed industries, and to the food sector, the dairy industries, the food producers. Does that look as though it's going to be a problem in your mind? The ACF says, this is it's a shocking deal.
I've noticed what's been said. We've got to look at the environmental integrity and the fiscal responsibility of the proposals that have been put forward. And to do that effectively, we've got to see the detail, as I was saying before. The overall objective, of course, here is to meet the targets that the government has set, and we've set an unconditional minimum target of a 5% reduction in emissions by 2020. Mr McFarlane indicated last night that the opposition, I should say, is committed to that minimum reduction target too. We, of course, have suggested we will go as far as a 25% cut by 2020. These are extremely important positions that...
It's actually all you need to take to the table at Copenhagen, that target, isn't it? An agreed target.
No. We certainly maintain very strongly that we need to get the CPRS legislation through, because you can't just go there and talk about targets. You've also got to demonstrate you've got a proposal and a mechanism by which to achieve the reductions. The targets are important. We've got to achieve those reductions, and the emissions trading scheme, of course, is a critical mechanism to achieve those targeted reductions in emissions. And so, to come back to your question, it's the integrity of the scheme and how it's constructed that is very important, and that is the perspective, I guess, that you would say we're going to have a close look at these proposals from the Coalition.
And Minister, just very briefly, you're also the Assistant Defence Minister. HMAS Armidale has been dispatched to help a vessel full of asylum seekers in distress carrying 79 passengers off Sumatra. Has the Armidale reached the boat? Can you tell us what it plans to do when it arrives? Will it tow that boat somewhere?
Oh, well, I'm not in a position to, comment specifically on what's going on in the area. However, naturally, we're very concerned about what's happening there, and we'll be doing what we can to protect life and ensure people's safety.
All right, Minister, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Greg Combet. Greg Combet is the Assistant Minister for Climate Change. He'll be involved in the negotiations which kick off this afternoon between the Coalition and the Government. He's also the Assistant Defence Minister.